Hello everyone, you're very welcome to Programme 2 of Hidden Kinvara. We're here at Curran and we're on our way up to Shanclough Church and Cillin. Now this here is Shanclough Church. It's now in ruins, as you can see, with trees and everything growing up about it. And you might wonder, why a church like this, stone church, was built out here. Well, this was in EP02. Now, EP02 meant in English the territory of the Heinzes. Now, the Heinzes controlled all this place from Curran Castle right around here down to Kilcolgan, and you had their castles, Curran Castle, Lydekin Castle, Clockballymore Castle, all stretched around the place, and servicing those places were their churches. Now, strange as it might seem, this was a parish church for Kinvara. You had one here, you had one in Cillin, and you had one up at the cemetery in Kinvara at Mount Cross. In the middle of the old cemetery there was a ring fort, and in the middle of that ring fort was the old church. Now, these churches were in use even during the penal times, when mass rocks were the only places that people could worship in other parts of the country, because the landlords who owned this land after the settlement, after the Cromwellian settlements, had come from Catholic stock, and there wasn't the same imperative to enforce the penal laws here. So you had those three churches operating in this area that's now Kinvara Parish. Now, looking at it, you'd wonder where the population was. But Frank Nocton told me that when he was a young fella, if you look up at the south of the castle from here, up right at the back of it, if you look up here, about 200 meters up along this road here, there was actually a settlement. Now, Jeff O'Connell and Ann Corf discovered this when they were doing their map. But Frank told me there was at least the ruins of 7 houses up in that area there. They found the ruins of more than that when they were doing their map. So in famine times, or up to the famine times, particularly up to 1848 or 1849, there was obviously a big population here, and this population would have gone to Mass and all the religious rituals here. Now, the other reason why it's here is that very close to here you have Kirkham Row, south of us, and north of us you have Kilmacduagh. Now, each of these was a big monastic settlement. I mean, Kilmacduagh at one stage in the Middle Ages had as many as 800 students in it. So you can imagine that this was an outlying church for it. Now, like all churches of the time, this church here had a Cillin. Now, the Cillin was over here. Now, there's very little of it left. You can see there a few stones out there, and around on the other side of the church you'll see some more of them. Now, the Cillin was where unbaptized children were buried. They were buried because it was deemed by the church that they were in sin. They hadn't been baptized and couldn't be buried in a consecrated place. So they were buried outside of consecrated ground on the outskirts of the main graveyard. Now, over generations of reclaiming the land, the stones in the cemetery, the Cillin cemetery, were all picked up and put in. Not just babies were were buried in the Cillins. You had also people who committed suicide were buried in the Cillins. And because we're near the sea here, it's not impossible that bodies washed up on the seashore where people didn't know who they were, that they also were buried in the Cillins that surrounded this particular church. So even though the reclamation has taken place, there's probably quite a lot of material under the ground here yet to be discovered. So you can see there the side of the church, very, very little part of the church, just there to the south of us. We can see very little part of the church is there. That's nearly everything that remains of what was once a substantial church. So it's part of hidden Kinvara. So I hope that you'll be encouraged to go along and have a look at it and see where it is. Now, there isn't an awful lot left in it, but there's a lot of history associated with it, and there's a lot of our history associated with it. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you at our next program.